Hello, I am Tech Day folks. I hope you are doing well and joining the conference. I am Francesco Kikiriko, and I'm going to talk to you about open source identity infrastructures. I'm in love with open source since a few years, and I've been doing IAM for as part of my job in the past 20 years. So I decided to talk to you about these two aspects combined. So here we go. Let me just share a bunch of links about myself in case you want to go on and read a bit more. So I'm a member of the Apache Software Foundation. In there, I'm also VP for Apache Syncope. For my job, I'm managing director at Tirasa. That is my company. I also talk a bit about it later. And then a few more links about myself. So first of all, let's focus on a key point, why we are doing open source IAM. Well, you probably all know that one need to choose an IAM solution. It's plenty of options to pick from. But if we focus on open source IAM, we can see there are a few alternatives. We have the commercial off the shelf. So we have vendors, we have IBM, Oracle, ForgeRock, NetIQ, Okta, whatever provider you might want to think about. Then we have also identity as a service offers out there. Or last but not least, we have our homegrown solutions. I'm sure all of you have already have experience where companies or organizations decide that building from scratch an IAM tool is a lot of fun. And so they start playing with that. At a certain point, they will eventually realize that things are not so smooth and move back to one of the other options. That's usually. About open source IAM, we have a few pros that we possibly all know and that are common with other open source options. First of all, the great level of extensibility and customization. With open source, you decide what you want to have. Speed innovation, because usually the community is getting and receiving innovation from other fields and putting into the project. And finally, to me, the best of all the pros, no vendor lock-in. If you choose an open source IAM solution, you are not locked in by choices that someone else has done elsewhere. Naturally, there are a few doubts, especially for IAM, which is a highly professional and skilled field. So will my open source IAM solution get enough professional support? How high would be the TCO? And finally, who would be in charge for managing the security aspects? About selling open source IAM, I think the option is quite smooth. This is something the kind of answer I've been getting trying to sell our solutions to customers so many times. You can replace IBM here with Oracle, ForgeRock, NetIQ, whatever provider comes to your mind, because selling open source in general is quite difficult. Selling open source IAM is much difficult. But what we can offer in our open source IAM portfolio, you get, as I was mentioning before, you get a level of flexibility that can simply not compare with what open source with what vendors do, because they often follow the black box approach, and you just can get your hands in without their consent. And this is the vendor lock-in I was also mentioning before. And the transparent security is something that needs a bit more explanation, especially during the selling phase, because it looks suspicious at first. No, what does mean transparent and security together? Transparent security means to have a very well-known, well-coded, and shared and established security process to report, fix, disclose security threats. And this is often what software foundation do very, very well, and vendors don't do decently very often. So another important point is about involvement. when you build an open source IAM solution for a customer, the customer itself can become part of the solution. So they can put their input. They can also take some tasks in the deployment with a sole objective. The target for all this process is to leave your tools in place even beyond your lifespan. I often see to my customers going against my company's interests that even if Tirasa falls down, they could count on the Apache Software Foundation. So the key point is that with open source IAM, the trust is not completely focused on the provider, on the vendor, on the contractor in our case, but also sits behind, on a larger shoulders, the one of the foundation, or in general the communities that stand behind the projects that are delivered. And finally, of course, since we're talking about open source IAM, we cannot just avoid mentioning the price. With open source, you are selling your services, your expertise, your know-how. You're not selling any license, not any piece of paper. Let's take our reference scenario. This is something I've assembled just to have to share the same language and to give also the same terms to the same components. So we have this IAM scenario where we have identity stores that are the places where identity lives. So in identity stores, we have accounts, we have roles, we have permissions, we have groups, we have whatever makes sense to store and to persist. The identity manager is the component that keeps identity store synchronized as much as possible. So is what we normally call the IDM, the identity manager. We also have the other components of the IAM infrastructure there is the access manager. The access manager is focused on front end and takes care of all access management issues. So it talks about SAML, about OpenID Connect, OAuth. It rules access, so it has policies for granting access, for doing MFA, for doing single sign-on, and whatever is related to what we call normally the authentication and authorization process. And finally, we have this secure proxy component that is there to ease the integration of legacy applications into a full-fledged IAM architecture. We have also actors in this reference scenario. On the back end, we have business, help desk, and system administrators. On front end, we have end users, possibly accessing via their mobile devices. Finally, the last component I've already mentioned in the scenario is about applications that need to be integrated, sometimes in the provisioning process, other times just for access or for both. One important thing about this reference scenario is that very often IAM components are required to interoperate with other vendors' components. So what I'm saying is that it is a requirement not that the identity manager from one vendor or from one open source project could only work or deal with an access manager coming from the same producer. So this is just a brief outline of the things I've been reporting before. So talking about identity store, examples are LDAP, Active Directory, the relational databases, cloud resources, MongoDB, whatever storage resource you can think of. The identity manager has, as I was saying, has a job to keep things synchronized as much as possible, but provides additional features like provisioning, reconciliation, workflow, policies, reports, self-service tools, and whatever is required for the identity infrastructure to operate. Access Manager takes care of access, so talks about OpenID Connect, SAML, MFA, single sign-on, I was saying, and Secure Proxy is mainly needed for doing API management and integrate legacy applications. So we can easily identify open source IAM components by a quick Google search, but I've reported here the main components that have some history to count on, that I've personally been in contact with, or I had to compare to in my professional experience. So there could definitely be more than those. But about those, I can tell something, so I know which roles they can play inside an infrastructure. I know about their communities, so which are all important elements to evaluate the goodness of open source IAM components. Some of them are from big vendors like Keycloak, that comes from Red Hat, so is the open source backing project for Red Hat single sign-on. There are emerging vendors like Glue from North America that is offering a sort of freemium version. So they have the open core and you pay for additional features or for the identity as a server version. We have WSO2 that is very strong in the Far East, or other components like the icon in the bottom center that is for the open identity that comes from a fork from ForgeRock. So each of them have a long history behind, and they have reference implementation and things we can consider when we need to choose the right component. So which are the main criteria to select open source IAM software components when building an infrastructure, when you need to design your requirements infrastructure? So first of all, you need to meet functional requirements. So if you need provisioning, you cannot choose, for example, from the list above, you cannot choose CAS, the icon at center, because CAS offers only access management features. A very important, for example, just to give you an example, ease of extending and customizing is a very strong and central point. So as I was saying, this is possibly one of the main reasons why one is choosing open source IAM software. So the process for extending and customizing the behavior of the software itself should be well documented, should have a strong history behind, should have a community to reach out for asking for support, or high skills and direct access to source code are required. The integration for IAM in general is extremely important. For open source IAM is possibly even more important, because when deploying open source IAM software, you often have to deal with proprietary or vendor counterparts. So you need to rely on standard protocols, standard processes, standard formats that are easing such interoperation. Another important point is about deployment options. So that software can be deployed as a standalone, can be deployed inside an application server, a web container, can be deployed serverless or via Docker, can be orchestrated by Kubernetes, or whatever the options are today. Compliance also is very compliance to regulations, and also support for open standards. I was saying about intercommunication and interoperation are extremely important here. And one critical item is the level of commercial support. The project could be great, the code could be awesome and works like a charm, but if you don't have any commercial support, then in case of trouble, you should either learn and fix by yourself, or just get lost. This aspect, of course, for IAM, for open source IAM, is very critical, because for other open source software, like, for example, let me think about LibreOffice or Thunderbird or Firefox or whatever open source personal productivity tool. In that case, if you have troubles, you can go and search the internet for people having the same trouble you're experiencing, and possibly very often find a fix. this is also my experience. No, I'm a long time Linux user, and I get exactly in this feeling. But what happens for open source IAM? There are tools that are with a very restricted audience, and the audience is also all very professional. So finding fixes for your issues, or even contacting people with the same troubles you're getting, is often very difficult. So commercial support is very, very important here. And finally, we are talking of open source projects. So the community is a key aspect. Is the community alive? I mean, you can see people, you can read about people using the software, often via mailing lists or forums or whatever. How far since the last commit? So how many commits there have been in the source repository in the last period? Again, open source, not just open core. When you, with projects that having open core, but not open source completely, you might experience troubles because maybe you're finding exactly the functionality you need into the paid support, but you don't want to pay that vendor or that specific offer. So dealing with open core options is not always pleasant. So that's why we normally prefer full open source projects. And last point is about company versus software foundation. Very often we have very good open source projects that are just led by a single company. Let's take the Android example. We know that Android is open source. We know that Google is building Android, but you will only get the next Android version when Google decides to publish the version. So they are not disclosing their development process. You cannot see the Android issues they have during development. You cannot see the source code as it evolves. You cannot send a pull request to Android. Okay, so and we are talking about a very big company like Google. Think about a smaller company that pretends to lead an open source IAM project. They are getting exactly the same issues. It's kind of, they are allowing you, disclosing you something that is always considered as a company treasure first. So that's why normally with software foundations, and I can think of the Apache Software Foundation, of course, being a member, but also there are other software foundations like Apereo or the Eclipse Software Foundations, for example. And in that case, it is different because they have an open source governance model in place. They have a code of conduct. The project and the community itself can survive even if a single contributor or even a company that is contributing is dying, is retiring, or loses interest into the project. And after this introduction on the various components, let me spend some words about Apache Syncope. So the project at the Apache Software Foundation that I am for which I'm working as, I'm contributing as a PMC chair, so Project Management Committee chair. The project was developed by a company, but then we decided to donate in 2011 to the foundation. So at that point, we have to donate the code with a formal document. And since then, the project is managed at the Apache Software Foundation. It follows the Apache Software Foundation bylaws and the procedures, the legal entities, and whatever kind of protection or requirement the foundation is enforcing onto the project. We have, you can go and have a look at the project website, or go looking the project sources at GitHub, and you can also see who are the contributors behind the project, how many companies we have there, and also how the project has been evolving during years. The current stable version, almost out of date, is the release 2.1. And Apache Syncope is an identity manager. So it takes care of provisioning or reporting and all the features I've been mentioning before. Starting from 3.0, we are very close to releasing 3.0, we already issued the M0, so 3.0.0 M0. Besides the identity management feature, we have added access management and secure proxy features. About Access Manager, we simply embedded Apereo CAS because it has all the requirements we needed. So even from a feature point of view and legal point of view, because we have legal items to comply with for open source about licensing, about reusing software, etc. So by Access Management, we have embedded Apereo CAS. About Secure Proxy, we decided to build a new Secure Proxy for API management and legacy application integration built on Spring Cloud Gateway. The project itself, you can see a bit statistics about it, but roughly we are around 15,000 downloads per month. So the software itself seems to be used and has quite a strong user base. This slide is about a very simple overview of the software architecture. We have the components in Syncope are the core that takes care of offering the REST services used by the rest of the infrastructure. So all the logic is implemented, that is split by various layers. It does interaction with external resources as database, LDAP, Active Directory, cloud, is managing provisioning processes, workflow, persistence, reporting, takes care of security. So whatever, all the identity management features are implemented and provided by the core component. The REST interface is offering services to outside, even to third-party applications. But we also have other components that are part of the infrastructure. So we have the admin UI, web application for which you can manage and administer the server, the core under all its aspects. The end user UI, self-serve management for end users for self-registration, social registration, managing self-profile management, password reset, and any application that could go into self-service. Web access, that is a component that is wrapping Apereo CAS. So web access takes care of access management with all the Apereo CAS features that are very unexpectedly high number. And secure remote access, that is a component based on Spring Cloud Gateway doing for API management and legacy application integration. From a technology point of view, Apache Syncope is based on the latest Spring Boot stable. Works with JDK 11 and 17. You can deploy it as a Java EE application under several containers, or you can deploy it standalone or via Docker containers for orchestration. And we do have a whole set of ready-to-use integration that you can put into your project. So relational databases, LDAP, Active Directory, cloud provider for SCIM, or workflow engines, or Elasticsearch. After Syncope, let me just spend a few words on my company. Tirasa is founded in 2011. We do work only with open source identity and access management tools and frameworks. We primarily build the tools or use and contribute the tools that others are building. And secondly, we use the tools we are building or we are contributing to build the infrastructures for our customers to design, develop, and deploy. So our services are about delivery. So the traditional delivery, give the requirements, take back the implementation on-premise, on cloud, whatever required. Or the development support, that is a model that works very well with open source. Our customer does the project. We act as primary consultants. So we offer reference implementation, best of breed practices. We validate design or requirements. We suggest implementation. We also fix issues they might have found in the upstream project. So whatever is needed for someone to roll out their own identity and access management project based on open source tools, even if they don't get the full expertise on them. Production support for system in production, and then POCs, workshops, and training. Our selling proposition are based on 3 items: the flexibility of open source, know-how, because we are, as we said, we put our mouth where our money is, meaning that we don't deploy or deliver or share tools that others are building. We work on the tools that we contribute to build and to release on open source. And this has a very great benefit, especially for is a win-win situation for us and for our customers that get their upgrades for their rolled out solutions. And finally, the vendor lock-in, because customers are the owners of the solutions. Tirasa is not, and not even any third-party vendor. So if we go back to the slide about the scenario, we can see that our reference implementation is to deploy Syncope everywhere. And we have actually some customer where we could work this way. So we have Syncope as an identity manager, Syncope as a secure proxy, Syncope as an access manager. So the whole infrastructure is based on Syncope. But there are, of course, other cases where we only play, we have Syncope playing only one of the roles, one or two of the roles they are depicted in this scenario. And so we have to integrate with other open source tools or with commercial vendors. I will go out with just a few cases. This is, for example, the University of Florence. You can see the users we have here, the features that are needed, the fact that we had to integrate with a national university and higher educational system for the name it Cineca for provisioning, etc. So the system itself is working this way. Second case is Virgin Voyages. I guess you are all familiar with the Virgin brand. This is for North America, and the relevant part is here is we had to develop an integration with event live streaming, so with Apache Kafka, and also to manage the provisioning between shore and ships, so to take things in an asynchronous way to retain all the functionalities working. Another case is Gordon Food Service, again, North America. Here we have an integration with Okta, for example, and with a high level of customization and a quite considerable user base of more than 400K users. Normally, by my experience, the identity deployments are often difficult to extend, to stretch onto a level that gets into hundreds of thousands of users or entities managed. This was the case. We have also conducted some performance tests that show how we can easily manage more than 1 million identities using such tools. And finally, we have a healthcare example where we have also some customization related to workflow with approvals or wrappers, or integration with third-party, in this case with Drupal, for administration and for third-party application. So I hope you enjoyed my presentation. You have my references in a slide in case you want to reach out and ask for more details. Please keep having fun with IAM Tech Days. Bye.